If you're just joining us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television live from Lagos. A quick reminder of our top stories now. Borno State Governor Babagana Umara vows to arm civilian JTF and other vigilante groups for the new phase in the fight against insurgency in the state. President Muhammadu Buhari to host summit on the Lake Chad Basin Commission leaders on June 12 to strategize against terrorism in the region, says he is ready to face threat with full force. World Health Organization calls for stringent efforts of laws and enforcement aimed at reducing the use of tobacco as death toll from its usage continue to rise. The authorities reveal identity of 12 people killed after a gunman fired on his colleagues at a municipal building in the U.S. city of Virginia Beach. For more information on our top stories and others, please visit our website as channelstv.com and youtube.com/channelsweb, which has videos of our shows. Also, watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news and updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app have an eyewitness feature that you can use to share those pictures, videos, or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and follow the instructions. The challenge posed by the growing number of out-of-school children in Nigeria remains worrisome to governments at various levels in the country. But how much is being done to curb it, as it continues to be a subject of debate? In this next report, we'll take a look at this challenge, especially as it affects the northern part of the country.
According to the United Nations Children Education Fund, Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. The UN agency says Nigeria's population growth has put pressure on the country's resources, public services and infrastructure, with children under 15 years of age accounting for 45% of the over 190 million population. The burden on education has become overwhelming. Even though primary education is officially free and compulsory, over 10 million of the country's children aged 5 to 14 years are not in school. Only 61% of 6 to 11-year-olds regularly attend primary school, and only 35.6% of children aged 36 to 59 months receive early childhood education. A far greater percent of the over 10 million out-of-school children are found in northern Nigeria. In the northeast, Boko Haram violence has deprived many children access to education. Teachers have been killed and schools burnt or closed for security reasons. While the situation appears better in the south, the picture is bleak in the north of the country.
I promise that we will try to bring the number of out-of-school children to about half. I must apologize, we have failed in that, but I believe we have put everything in place for the next minister to achieve this.
In Kaduna State and other parts of northern Nigeria, the sight of Almajiri children and child hawkers roaming the streets, motor parks and markets on a daily basis is not only a major concern to stakeholders, but also a threat to the socio-economic development of the region.
Not a single child should remain outside school.
At an education policy summit, the executive secretary of the Universal Basic Education expressed fears that the North may face greater socio-economic and security challenges if the issue of out-of-school children was not addressed.
Let's refocus their attention on ensuring that, on education, on going to school and other aspects. Otherwise, again, we will have a big crisis in our hands.
Experts are of the opinion that increased funding will greatly assist in reducing the number of out-of-school children in the country and enable their proper education and development. Perhaps the ushering in of new administrations in the various states and the second term of the government at the federal level provides a fresh opportunity to re-evaluate the state of primary and secondary education, especially in northern Nigeria, and reverse the current trend.
Joining us on the News at 10 to examine this disturbing issue is a development specialist, Mrs. Foluke Ademokun. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us on the News at 10. Why is this number of out-of-school children, we understand, 10 million and still rising, in spite of efforts to address this, particularly in the north?
Well, first I will say we are not even sure what the number is. We have the 10.5, we have 13.2, we have 8 million, we have 7 million, because we have issue with data collection in this country. But then looking at the north, you have to look at social norms. In your report, we talked about Almajiri, there are people who believe children should go to Quranic, school, and that's making them out of school because they don't have access to literacy and numeracy. We need to look at that. We need to look at the issue of poverty. We need to look at the issue of violence, economic barriers. So there are, in my right, multiple, issues that are affecting, the access of children to school, particularly in the north.
So what do you think can be done now, especially considering that the new administration has just been sworn in May 29th, if you remember? But can they do anything to reverse this trend?
Yes, we can do something. Because if you look at the Middle East countries that are, excuse me, that are majorly, Islamic countries, you look at their literacy level, very high, 80%, 90-something% overall. For countries like Iran that are even, at war. So Nigeria, we can do something. I want maybe the government to look at even look at the issue of the Quranic school. At a time when there was problem with traditional birth attendants in Southwest here, the government looked at how they could work, together with the traditional birth attendants to improve, access to health for mothers, maternal, and child, care, to reduce the number of deaths, from that level, and it worked. That's something that, we could look at. We could also look at the issue of adult literacy, because an educated mother, I tell you, will produce, educated children. The level of the education you have as a mother determines how well your children, do. Look at most of the mothers in the northern part. They have, very poor, literacy background. So we need to work, at that. We need to look at the issue of infrastructure. We need to look at the issue of safety, security. These are areas that government need to concentrate its effort on so that more children can have access and they can be retained in school. We are talking about school food program. In primary 6, you have some girls already that are menstruating. Yes, you give them food. I'm just using this as an example. You give a girl food, and the girl is having discomfort with her menstrual cycle. Nothing is even we are not looking at that in terms of empowerment of women and girls. That is what we help to keep children in school. We must take a comprehensive effort to address some of these issues that are cross-cutting, that are intertwined, to help retain children in school.
Indeed, because the figures are quite high. And then you did mention the Al-Majri system of education in the north, which was designed for a purpose. Do you think it has met that purpose, especially in the light of the seeming situation now that it suggests to so many that are watching that the children are perhaps left behind? If
when we do not have a strategy, if you don't have a strategy, at addressing something, there could be exploitation. People take advantage, of the process. There are people who have taken advantage, undue advantage this time of the Al-Majri system as a way, to increase the situation of violence, to use these children as foot, soldiers, and that's something that we have to stop. How can government, work with the Al-Majri, the instructors, the Quranic, masters, to let them know that in this age and time, children need to know how to read and to write, to have basic skills to communicate, not just with the children in their neighborhood, but with children outside of their neighborhood. So that is where working together, with them is very, very important, to see how they can help to keep these children in school. The Al-Majri system, it's not working, obviously, because it's making the children more prone to violence, to the issue of, you see, sometimes children are they recruit, them on the internet. They have access, to false information about society, about their community, and since you don't have the right information, it affects the way, you see society, itself.
When you talked about the school feeding program, do you think it's working?
Well, to some, it's in some areas, yes. From the report I've had, the assessment, but in some areas, not working.
But do you think that a program such as that is able to encourage children to enroll further in school?
It is able to, encourage children. But we have to be strong in monitoring and evaluation to monitor the process. Sometimes you develop, you put a program together thinking it will meet a particular objective. But in the course of implementation, you could have some errors. So you need to look at it and say, okay, where have we gone wrong with this school, feeding program? How can we make it, better? We have, instances where some, children, they are not, getting the right, quality of food. We need to look at all of that and see how we improve. There's need to improve the school feeding, program with the children so that they can, retain them in school. And also look at some other elements. It's not just about food, as I mentioned earlier. How about girls? We are having issue with girls because of sanitary towels that are not, getting into school with the discomfort. The mothers are not educated to help them. So we need to look at, the gender implication of some of these things. To see how we can help, keep children in school, in comfort, the infrastructure itself in the school.
So with all this, your recommendations, you believe that figure, 10 million, will be drastically reduced? I
believe it will reduce if we look at focus on infrastructure, focus on public service. We also focus in social protection, which is the food feeding program.
That's a good place to let it rest. I must thank you so much indeed for talking to us, the development specialist, Mrs. Fuluke Ademoko. And now, when the news at 10 returns, that would be electronic payments transactions hit 34.02 trillion naira across the country in the first quarter of 2019. That's some business news. Join us again.